Hey everybody, this is E at E's Workout Channel. Today I'm gonna do a video a little bit lighter than the videos I've been doing recently. This video is gonna be about the top 5 greatest boxers ever. So yeah, this is gonna be a video about boxing. I'm gonna do a video a little bit later. I'm gonna do a UFC video a little bit later as well. I'm gonna get off the philosophical stuff for a minute, get back to a little bit of sports, a little bit of supplements, little bit of anime possibly. And the reason why I chose to do this video today is because I was reading an article about Floyd Mayweather interview, he did with Fat Joe. And Fat Joe asked Floyd Mayweather about his top 5 greatest boxers ever. And Floyd Mayweather listed, this is his list of his top 5. He picked himself, of course, as number 1. He had Sweet Pea, Pernell Whitaker as number 2. Wait, I'm trying to let this thing go past. Alright, yeah, he had Sweet Pea Whitaker as number 2. He had Roberto Duran as number 3. He had Larry Holmes as number 4. And he had Aaron Pryor as number 5. Now, when I heard that, when I saw that list, I was like, man, I don't agree with that at all. I totally disagree. And it's no thing, it's subjective. Anybody can have their own top 5. But that definitely wouldn't be my top 5. So I'm like, shoot, why don't I do a video about my top 5 greatest fighters ever in boxing, and tell you who I think it is. Let you know who I think the best boxers were, the top 5. And in fact, we can start now. Let me start with number 5. My number 5, I'll go from 5 and go up to 1. But my number 5 is Bernard Hopkins. B-Hop was 50 years old, still the light heavyweight champion, and still dominating, up until his last fight. But, it happens. Time catches us all. But up until that point, B-Hop was dominating them young dudes. You know what I'm saying? And up 50 years old, still the champ, still dominating. So no other fighter that I'm aware of has ever done anything like that. So that alone gives B-Hop a spot on the list. And not to mention the fact that B-Hop was a beast anyway. He wasn't the greatest offensive fighter, but in terms of defense, even the fights that he lost were like super close, except for the last one. Well, he didn't take any damage. I don't think he took any damage his whole career, to be honest. Well, and then, Roy Jones touched him up a little bit too, but, B-Hop was just a masterful boxer. And that's why he takes a spot on the list. My number 4 is going to be Marvin Hagler. If you know anything about Marvin Hagler, Marvin Hagler is one of the most dominant fighters ever, possibly the greatest middleweight champion of all time. He was a freaking beast. And just so y'all know, I should have mentioned this earlier, I'm not going to go back to the, I'm going to stick with the modern era of boxing. I'm not going to go back to the Joe Lewis's or the Sugar Ray Robinsons. That was, that was kind of before my time. So, I'm going to just stick with the fighters from the current era. Hagler is probably going to be the oldest, the furthest I go back. And yeah, he's my number 4. If you know anything about Hagler, Hagler was a beast. He did lose to Sugar Ray Leonard in his last fight. But man, that fight was some trash, garbage. I think Leonard might have touched him 3 or 4 times. Literally touched him. Like, no damage at all. No damage in the fight at all. It was razor thin. They gave it to Leonard, but the fight probably should have been a draw because it was awful. It was terrible. It probably shouldn't have happened, to be honest. But anyway, Hagler, one of the most dominant fighters ever. One of the greatest champions ever. A beast. My number 3 is going to be Floyd Mayweather himself. Floyd Mayweather is definitely one of the greatest boxers ever, possibly the most gifted boxer of this generation in terms of offense, defense, footwork, head movement, body movement. getting in and out. It's like he mastered every aspect of boxing that there was to master. You know, hey, like love him or hate him, Floyd was a beast, and he worked hard. You know, Floyd put in work. People don't know Floyd. I don't know Floyd personally, but I know he put in work to get to that level he was at. You know what I'm saying? The only reason, the only reason I have him at number 3 and I don't have him at 2 or 1 is because Floyd's competition just wasn't all that great in my opinion. He doesn't have like any epic fights. Now I will say this: he whipped the shit out of Diego Corrales, and nobody had ever done anything like that to Diego Corrales. Diego Corrales died from a motorcycle accident, I think. But he was one. He was an awesome man. He was an awesome boxer. Floyd dusted him, treated him like his kid. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, Floyd ain't really have no epic fights like where he just got in there, got into a battle like where we can look back and say, damn, that was a good fight. You know what I'm saying? Floyd barely, just barely won. I mean, I'm not gonna say he barely won. He did just enough to win his fights. I felt. And so because of that, I'm not gonna place him any higher on the list. I'm gonna put him at number 3. Number 2 is going to be Muhammad Ali. This was a tough choice because I was going between him and Lennox Lewis. In my opinion, those are probably the 2 greatest heavyweights that I'm aware of. I ended up giving it to Muhammad Ali because of who Muhammad Ali beat. Muhammad Ali beat George Foreman. And understand that when George Foreman was boxing, I don't know if there has ever been another beast like George Foreman ever. George Foreman was killing dudes, killing them. George Foreman was a monster, straight up monster. And Ali ended up beating him, outthinking him, outsmarting him, higher fight IQ. And he beat him. He beat that monster. So for that reason, and he beat Joe Frazier, Ken Norton, and a whole bunch of other really good fighters. So for that reason, I edged it to Ali. Even though Lennox Lewis did beat some good fighters, including Vitaly Klitschko. It was between those 2 for sure for the heavyweight that I wanted to put on here. But I ended up giving it to Ali for the reasons I just said. And lastly, my number 1. I wonder if any of y'all can guess what this number 1 is gonna be. I wonder if we're on the same page. All y'all real boxing fans, y'all true boxing fans. Well, my number 1 is none other than Roy Jones Jr. Roy Jones was the greatest boxer I have ever seen in the ring during his prime. Now, I do know that his last 10 fights, he's looked like trash. But when Roy Jones was in his prime, I have never, ever seen another boxer like him. Nobody. I've never seen, he was in a league of his own. I have never seen anybody fight like Roy Jones in terms of what he could do in that ring. I mean, his speed, his power, it was ridiculous. I mean, he was murking people in there. Roy Jones is definitely the greatest fighter. Now, I'm going to tell you what happened to Roy. Roy Jones was the light heavyweight. Roy Jones was the middleweight champion, then the super middleweight champ. Then he went up to light heavyweight, became the champ. And then Roy Jones went and challenged John Ruiz for the heavyweight, the heavyweight title. He beat John Ruiz for the heavyweight title. And then he relinquished the belt and came back down to light heavyweight to fight Antonio Tarver, and he was never the same after that. As soon as he came back down, it was a different Roy Jones. I don't know if he should have stayed at heavyweight or should have never went up to heavyweight. But after he came back, the Roy we knew was gone. It was over, done. And but prior to that, nobody. There hasn't been a fighter yet that could emulate what Roy Jones used to do. And the same really could be said for Floyd in terms of putting offense and defense together. I think those definitely are the 2 greatest fighters in terms of skill, that I've seen, in my time watching boxing. Roy Jones was so good, he didn't even need a defense. And, I'm not even exaggerating when I say that. He didn't need a defense. His offense was so potent. His offense was so strong. He didn't need head movement or anything because the only thing that would happen is you was going to get blasted into next week, next month, next year. You you ain't get a chance to hit him for real. He was so fast. But anyway, I'll just repeat them one more time. Roy Jones, Muhammad Ali, Floyd Mayweather, Marvin Hagler, and Bernard Hopkins are my top 5 greatest boxers ever. With Bernard Hopkins, everybody want to drive these loud ass cars. But I had thought of maybe putting Joe Calzaghe instead of Bernard Hopkins, because Calzaghe was a beast too. You know, he retired undefeated. But I just gave it to B Hop because of what he accomplished in terms of his age. You know, nobody has never done that ever other than B Hop. So that's why he got the spot. I already talked about Lennox Lewis and why I gave it to Muhammad Ali. I could have put Sugar Ray Leonard on the list, but I felt it would be hard for me to put Sugar Ray on the list because I felt Tommy Hearns was a better boxer than Ray, and Tommy Hearns got, emasculated by Marvin Hagler. So that's why Marvin Hagler's on the list and those two aren't. I didn't put Sweet Pea on the list because his offense was garbage. I mean, he was, in terms of defense, I don't know if there's been anybody better than Sweet Pea. Floyd might be the closest, but Sweet Pea, in terms of our generation, Floyd would probably be the closest. But Sweet Pea was a masterful defensive fighter, but his offense was terrible. I can say the same thing about a fighter like Chris Bird, who was a really good heavyweight, but defense awesome, offense terrible. Tim Bradley was another great fighter that I really just couldn't justify putting on the list. Manny Pacquiao lost to Floyd, of course. I don't know if Tim Bradley, I can't remember. Tim Bradley, was he undefeated? I can't remember if Tim Bradley, no, he lost to Pacquiao. That's right, he sure did. But yeah, Oscar De La Hoya was another great fighter. But anyway, these are my top 5. I would love to hear, what your top 5 are. Man, please put it in the comments. I'd love to know, who y'all think the top 5 are. Top 5 greatest boxers are. Please like, comment, subscribe. Everybody stay safe. I love y'all. Peace.